In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you the best exercises for a herniated disc and low back pain, comparing herniated, bulging, and a ruptured disc. So if you've been struggling with a disc injury, as I feel 80+% of the population has been diagnosed with at some point in their life, then stick around so I can show you how to fix it without ever having to go under the knife. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Jessica, an athletic therapist with over 10 years of clinical experience, providing you the best tips and tools for living a healthy, fit, and pain-free life. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. So what's the difference between a herniated, bulging, and ruptured disc? So when we're talking about disc injuries, there are three different types that we usually talk about in the therapy world, which is bulging, herniated, and a ruptured disc. A ruptured disc we are not going to be talking about in depth today. That is more so when the disc actually explodes, and this is a surgical procedure. It happens to a very small percentage of the population and usually is traumatic. So when we're talking about a herniated or bulging disc, we have to look at the actual structures that are involved. So in our spine, we have the disc, which is known as the intervertebral disc, and this is what is separating each vertebrae in the spine. We have our cervical, thoracic, and lumbar vertebrae, and in this video, we're talking about the lumbar vertebrae specifically. So the way to think of these discs are like a jelly donut. We have the center, which is more fluid-like, and the outer rim, which supports that center. When we get enough stress on the outer rim, what happens is it starts to compress the disc, and that starts to push the jelly-like portion of the disc out. You might get diagnosed with a herniated disc, but not often do you actually have any symptoms. This is because if the disc is not protruding out the back and compressing the nerve root, then you might not even notice that you have it. So what's the difference between a bulging versus herniated disc? So bulging disc is usually when the compression of the disc starts to push back, but it's not yet touching the nerve root. Herniated is usually it's pushing back and it's now compressing the nerve root, which you will get the symptoms down into the lower extremity. So a herniated disc versus bulging disc is more severe. So the number one irritation of the disc is flexion, repeated flexion specifically. Because what happens with flexion is that when we flex forward, our pressure and weight is put on the front of the disc, and what happens is that now squeezes and squirts the jelly-like substance in the disc back. And this is what can create the symptoms that you might be feeling down into your legs. I'm not going to go into too much depth about that position. I actually did cover this in last week's video, so if you want to check out that video, I'll link it above as well as in the description below. The other thing that you could be doing that's irritating the back that you don't even know that you're actually making it worse is doing repetitive stretches for your lower back, which are the muscles specifically that are stabilizing that area to protect your spine. So what I mean by that is the flexion stretches. So positions like you're grabbing one knee into your chest, or you're rotating across and flexing one leg up and around. So you're already just accumulating that pressure in the front, and that's what's pushing that disc back. So you might get temporary relief by stretching those muscles in the back, but long term, that's not what we want to do in order to bring that disc back into place. So that tightness that you're feeling in your low back and the stiffness that you might be having, don't think of that as, oh, I gotta release this tension. It's actually there to support you for this reason. It's, you know, your body's actually quite smart. Our body's able to heal itself, and I can go into so much depth about this, but I won't for this video. I'll save it for another one. What are the most common symptoms with a herniated disc? Well, localized pain is usually surrounding the low back. It's centralized. If you've got that compression on the nerve root in your low back, then you might get referred pain down into the lower legs. So it really depends on which nerve is being affected. If you get enough irritation to the nerve root, over time, this can actually create weakness in the lower legs, and this is more concerning, and you definitely want to make sure that you're getting it assessed. So So for treatment, avoid flexion and sitting as much as possible. Stand up regularly. Walking is much better than sitting. Avoid that forward flexion or anything that's lifting and bending forward if possible. Icing can be very beneficial, especially in the initial stages. So if you've noticed that you've got heat or inflammation in the area, I would recommend using ice initially, because what we want to do is we want to reduce the swelling and inflammation and irritation in that area, because that pressure will just increase onto the disc and can actually make your symptoms worse. So if we want to reduce it, avoid using heat, because the last thing we want to do is increase circulation and swelling in that area initially. After the swelling or inflammation has come down, then we might want to introduce the heat, so then that we can help to relax the tight muscles that are working so hard in order to stabilize and support your back. So icing for 20 minutes on and 40 minutes off repetitively for the first few days can be very beneficial. Now resting, avoid sitting, as I mentioned. The best position for relaxing your low back is actually to lie on your back and have either a chair or a few pillows underneath your legs just to prop your legs up to take some of that pressure off the back. Same thing when you're sleeping, place a few pillows underneath your legs and that'll help alleviate some of that pressure. And lastly, exercises. What are the best exercises for herniated disc and low back pain? So the first one we're gonna do is decompression. What we need to do is, as I explained, we need to bring back that jelly-like substance back in and take some of that pressure off the disc that's constantly getting compressed. So we don't all have an inversion table at home, but if you have a pull-up bar or if you're at the gym, grab onto the bar, and then I want you to be able to still be able to keep your feet down onto the ground. And I'll show you in the video how if I hang without having my toes touching, what I'm doing is I'm engaging my hip flexors too much and not able to elongate the spine. So by having your toes down onto the ground, just for a little bit of assistance, this can help to create that separation we need. So you can hang for about 5 to 10 seconds, then rest. Do this 5 to 10 times. So the second thing we're gonna do is, not everybody might have this, but if you're noticing that you're leaning to one side, this is what we call a list. So if we're leaning to one side to take the pressure off our back, so for example, if I've got pain on my right side of my low back and I'm leaning to my left, that's when we have to do this second step. I want you to stand next to a wall and then have your elbow just at 90 degrees with your wrist out in front, and I want you to take a step away from the wall. This is going to allow us to kind of create that centralization that we're looking for. Then I want you to place your hand on your hip and you're going to push the hip towards the wall. So this is going to create that centralization, help to take the pressure off of the back to aid you to come back to being more in a neutral position. Do this 10 to 12 times. And then we can move on to step 3. If you don't have any problem and you're not leaning to one side and your family member's not telling you you're leaning to one side, then you can skip and go to step 3. So step 3 is prone extensions. So this is key, but the first 2 steps are, we must do those ones before we do this one. So we need to decompress the spine first, go and make sure that we have the centralization of the spine, and then we're gonna do extension. So that's gonna help. Now, like I said, the flexion is what creates this disc hurt from pushing back. So we gotta go into extension, which will help to bring it back in. So lie on your stomach, laying on your front, feet together, contract your glutes together and press up and keep your hips on the ground. Only go as high up until you feel like your hips are going to come off the ground. You can start by doing this on your elbows, and then you can work your way up to going into full extension, which is coming up onto your hands. You can hold for 10 seconds, come back down, repeat up to 10 times, gradually trying to get longer at holding this position. If we've got that neurological pain radiating into your legs, we want to slowly feel like that pain is going back up into your back and centralizing. That's a good sign. So that means that we're now getting that decompression off of the nerve root and it's subsiding. So remember, these exercises, we're looking for a reduction in your symptoms. So if you start to get pain when you're doing it or it's starting to get worse, then stop. Then these exercises are not right for you or something else might be going on that you need to get assessed. So let me know if you've been struggling with a disc herniation in the past or currently, and what has helped you in your rehab process. Now, if you're working or you're out and about and your symptoms are starting to get a little bit worse, and you don't want to lie down on the floor, or you don't have a floor where you can go and lie down on, then you're just going to be standing. I want you to place the heel of your hands on what we call your PSIS, so the two bony prominents at your low back. And I want you to just drive the heel of your hands forward as you gently extend back. You can hold for about a second or two and then come back out of it. You can start very small with the extension and then work your way up. Do this 5 to 10 times and then rest. So whenever you're out and about and you don't have the ability to do these other exercises that I showed you initially, then this is one that's a bit more portable. So just to sum everything up, disc injuries are very common. And just because you've been diagnosed with one on an MRI doesn't mean that you automatically need surgery or can't be fixed without surgery. It doesn't have to be a problem for you. If you follow these exercises, you can help heal the disc on your own by gradually getting that disc, that jelly-like substance, to come back into its position, and then the outer part of the disc can develop scar tissue, and that will heal over time. Remember, we're looking for a reduction in your symptoms with these exercises. So if you have referred pain, it should feel like the pain or that sharp burning, tingling pain is going back up in towards the low back. So there you have it. You have these 4 exercises. The first one is decompression, second is centralize the disc, then third is get that disc to come back into position, and the fourth one is really more that mobile exercise that you can do in standing. Alright guys, if you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments below and give me a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. For more information about tips on staying healthy and out of pain, head over to my website at jessicadudas.com and subscribe to my weekly newsletters so you get more content and tips on staying healthy, fit, and pain-free. Alright, I hope this video helped you out, and until next time, stay fit, healthy, and most importantly, have fun.